Bezuidenhout. Bezuidenhout. B, south of Wood. B, south of Wood. Southern Wood, if you translate it, it's Southern Wood. Okay? Right. I took a look at the architect's contract, which is a standard contract, but there's a lot of choices and options to be made in there, and which is very clear, very unclear, very vague. I think those should be discussed, and we should firm up on those. Perhaps a better option would be at this stage is not to do an entire contract from beginning to the end of the project, but rather just for the design and working drawings. That might be a better idea. That's my suggestion as somebody who's been in the construction business for almost 50 years. I think if the court would like to consider that, that would be a better idea, in my opinion. One of the things that I saw was not in the contract is there's no owner's rep. And I think you need somebody to do that review, somebody knowledgeable in construction. That's on a project like this, you need that because cost and schedule is very important on a project like this. It can very, very easily go out of control. And that's about it. Thank you.
Morning, Judge and Commissioners. My name's Mark Lowry. I live at 3712 Lonesome Creek Drive, Hood County, Texas. I want to look and focus on 11.8.2 of this contract. In the last Commissioners Court meeting that this was discussed, Commissioner Samuelson identified this 10% markup on expenses. And I believe she had the company willing to forego that 10% markup. But unfortunately, at the time, Judge Massengale, you made a motion and it was seconded, and they moved forward. And I see today that that's still in the contract. I hope you have discussion about that. I hope that 10% markup, or having what I call in my business stepping on it, will be removed from that, because that's taxpayers' money. It's not this commissioner's court money, it's taxpayers' money. I have a number of clients, to identify some of them: Paso Robles, California City, Dallas Zoo, Keller Williams Real Estate Company, which is a worldwide real estate company. I cannot imagine that these clients of mine would ever accept a 10% markup fee for expenses that I've incurred while doing a project. I don't know if this is typical in this architectural firm, but at the opportunity to save taxpayers' money, I say that we strongly get back to what Commissioner Samuelson's position was, because the taxpayers need you to look out for their money and not just pay it just because you have it. That's all I have to say, and I appreciate your time.
No other speakers.
I have a question. This is normally in a workshop setting, we kind of allow discussion throughout. Are we still going to allow that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So Commissioner Andrews and I called this workshop, and actually on the request of Mr. Gondek, because we were just going to meet with him individually and go through all of this, and he suggested we do a workshop so everyone can hear all the questions and he can answer in public, which I thought was a great idea, and thank you for being willing to do this. So one of the things that, as the discussions have happened over the last couple of weeks, he provided a document. One of the things that I was having kind of a hard time getting my head around is who are all the players, and how many contracts are we going to have, and who reports to who, and what are the responsibilities of all of these players. So he sent us this document yesterday, which I've asked him to kind of go over with us so we can get our heads around what we're about to embark on. So if you would step up to the mic and kind of walk us through this document. I've given a hard copy to all the court. So.
I'll try to step back here. Even as tall as I am, this is a little bit long for a mic here. Judge and Commissioners, y'all do have this document in front of you.
Fine. And if you would, just identify yourself for the.
My name is Wayne Gondek. I'm the principal architect and president of DRG Architects in San Antonio. This morning, I would like to go over this, and I do. I appreciate, and actually I'm a little bit humbled that the entire Commissioners Court would show up here for the workshop and does recognize how important, this contract here for design and construction administration is for this project. As we discussed, Commissioner Samuelson and I went back and forth on a couple of emails there, that this document here, the reason why we produced that yesterday was that in the initial email, there were several, 2 or 3 diagrams in there that were showing a relationship of the Commissioner's Court, the architect, the contractor or construction manager, and the owner's rep. And it didn't seem to fit how I understood it to be, and I offered to put this together as to how myself and DRG Architects understands how this goes together. The first and foremost being is that, the Hood County Commissioners Court, you all very well know, is the owner entity in this project and holds all the contracting enforcement and authority on the project, both with the architect, the contracting entity, whether that be a general contractor or a construction manager, and that can be discussed later, and any owner's representative for the project. Those three entities don't have any contractual obligation between each other and are only responsible to Commissioner's Court, which is the right and proper way. Our relationship and the contractor's relationship and the owner's representative relationship is always directly back with Commissioner's Court. In maintaining that contractual relationship, it keeps all the obligations as far as any of those entities separate and apart. So therefore, the architect can perform their services, the contractor performs their services, and the owner's rep performs their services totally independent, as it's defined by their contract. Now, with all these arrows going back and forth and everything, it's our perspective and our understanding that an owner's representative typically does that monitoring reporting of the activities of the architect and the construction manager or contractor, and reports that back to Commissioner's Court, and make sure that y'all are getting everything that you contracted for, that the architect is meeting their deadlines, that the architect is performing the services that are required, that we're making sure that, going down the list, schematic design, that we're doing our programming, our schematic design, that we're submitting our documents to the jail commission, that we're engaging with the sheriff's office to make sure we get his input as required. But again, making sure that we come back to Commissioner's Court at each of those phases and get approval to go forward on the schematic design, design development, construction documents, and then authorization for the solicitation of the bids. Now, if we're working with a construction manager, the construction manager will handle those solicitation for bids as far as getting all the sub-trades. If it's a general contractor, the architect will make sure that we get the general contractor's solicitations and make sure that those are presented to the court for evaluations. I don't want to get totally bogged down in all those details, but I want to go down and look at, under the architect, we have multiple consultants here. We have the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer that is one entity. We have a structural engineer that is another entity. We have the geotechnical engineer that does the soils testing, the civil engineer that does the site drainage and site work, site utilities there, the surveyor, and the environmental. We have to do an asbestos survey on the building. Even if we have information, we still have to do that by law to do that. All of those consultants are proposed in the contract to be under the architect. In other words, the county has one contract with the architect. We take care of all those other agreements. There are certain ones that are under our basic services fee. There's others that are listed as being under the supplemental services fee. And we broke those out into the two areas of basic services and supplemental services. The civil engineering, the survey, and environmental, and geotechnical are supplemental services that typically or customarily it's said in the industry that the owner would provide those services and the architect would coordinate them. That doesn't work very well when you have a public entity that does not do this on a regular basis. Now, when you have a facilities department that handles all your contracting for you, that may work. That's not what we're doing here. So the architect has proposed to take care of all of these subcontracts or subconsultants under our umbrella and make sure that they're all performing back to the county. Basically, the same thing happens on the construction end, is that the contractor handles all of the sub-trades, and they're responsible for making sure that the plumbers, the electricians, the concrete contractors, all the different trades that are required are provided to give you a complete project.
I was going to ask that question. So you have these consultants contracted through the design phase, but once the design phase is over, then do the contracts with these entities that you have listed here, is their contract over, or did they transition into a different role?
The engineers of record, which is a design engineers, which the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, and civil are actual design engineers. In other words, they're providing design services. We do require, and also because that this is a public project, it is required by law that the engineer of record or the architect of record does provide for the construction administration. In other words, that construction oversight during the construction of the project. So we do have to stay engaged in that. It's a separate phase, and it's a separate paragraph or article under the contract. But we have to provide those services, and we have to require our engineers or consulting engineers to provide those services.
Okay.
So to put it in simple terms, the structural engineer is going to come in and tell you, you need to put these kind of piers in here, your rebar needs to be this far apart, you need your slump and your concrete to be this. And then at that point, you just have to execute that
Yes, sir.
design. So
Yes, sir. Your geotechnical engineer is going to go and do the subsurface soils investigation, your soils report. They're going to issue that with recommendations for the type of foundation to be determined. And there's going to be a couple of options on that. The structural engineer is going to take that report and actually do those calculations on, what is the most cost effective? Do we take out a bunch of dirt and put back select fill, or do we do piers, or we do a suspended slab? Those multiple things that we will look at in there, and each one has a different dollar cost to it. But all of those have to meet geotechnical recommendations as to what to do in each of those situations. But the structural engineer will design that when those piers have to be done. They will say, no, this is what type of concrete to use, and this is a type of rebar to put in there. And then they will come out here on site to do the site investigations on the pre-pour situations. Now on piers, typically we have a testing laboratory that under the construction portion of the project that is a third party to do piers, because you have to drill piers, put the rebar in, and pour that in the same day. And it's a consecutive thing that has to go on. So getting the engineers back and forth and scheduling that is not feasible. So that's customary to have that done as a third party inspection on the piers, because there's lots that has to happen that day. And that testing laboratory or testing person has to be there, during that process. But it's a continuum of activities that the architect has to do from the early designs. The coordination in our duty as the architect is to coordinate the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, make sure, we have to do those conflict resolutions between the systems, making sure that they don't interfere with each other. And if you do have to have a pipe going through a beam, do you have a detail and show the contractor how that works, and make sure that if there is any movement that it doesn't break the pipe, and all those things that go into the design of the project and make sure that that happens during the construction.
Construction phase to monitor adherence to the design.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions on the organizational chart? Okay. Thank you for this. I think this helps a lot to understand all the relationships and the owner's rep, how they fit in, construction team. So thank you for that. So I mentioned I have some clarifications, questions on the contract. Just start going through them, I guess. So, okay.
Some information on JMP, which is a firm that specializes in representing the owners of a project. They look at it and represent, they're basically the owner's agent in dealing with the architect, construction people, and everybody else. They're trying to see if everything is, I guess, up to snuff, if there's anything they could say, if there's anything going on schedule, et cetera. Does DRG work with project managers on any of your projects?
Yes, sir. And I think that we've had discussions going back. Judge Lutz from Medina County, I think, came in and talked with the court. It's been a while back to talk about their process there. We were the architects on that project. They did have a project representative, I'm not sure that he was called a project manager, but he was a owner's representative at the time. I think he's since retired, so I'm not sure if he's still practicing or not, but that was the most recent project where we've had one. During this time where we've had the ARPA funds for multiple projects, there's been grant representatives, but also representatives that have been looking at both from a construction standpoint and the grant management, to have third parties to look at making sure that all the construction requirements are done as far as payrolls and that all those wage scales are being handled and everything. So we have been working with a lot of different entities on the construction projects, Judge, recently, because of many of the different grant fundings and other types of requirements that have been a little bit special there that we don't always have just on bond funds or certificates of obligation. We've on Bear County, actually, DRG has served in that program management role ourselves. So we're familiar with what the requirements are of that role and representing the owner. We've had other architects on that project. We had 5 different design entities under our responsibility of working with them. And a design build team also. So we understand what that role is and how to work in that situation. So we're familiar with that process.
I guess it depends on what the project manager would call it. I know that JMP worked with B County and Hayes County on their actual jail. And I guess I reached out and I talked briefly with Judge Merrill, who is at B County, but he kind of got it tail end and it was started way back with the previous judge, Marina, who's now with TAC, started it. saying that he didn't have a complete picture of it, but how do you think it actually works? I guess it depends on how great the project manager gives, how much it costs, but you have a buffer with somebody that has knowledge that the owner doesn't have, because the owner, which is the commissioner's court here, I don't think anybody that sets up here has any of the expertise that it takes to look at blueprints and constructions and seeing if there's any shortcuts or if the HVAC is right or how anything else is doing, where a project manager is supposed to just be looking out for the interest of the owner, and be looking against the architects and the various contractors that are working. So it can be a very cost-saving deal to the owner, don't you think?
Judge, the main thing, what we've seen historically, and then as I think, was mentioned here earlier, the previous speaker has been involved with this, 50 years. And 2025 just happened to be the 50th year that I've been involved with architecture and doing this. So it's kind of significant to me in going forward here. So I've seen projects handled in many ways. And I've dealt with school districts, and I've dealt with cities, and I've dealt with counties, but mostly public entities. And one of the things when this is brought up, I always want to ask that question: why are you hiring that entity? And you brought up here, those sort of answered your own question, or answered my question, is why are you hiring this entity? And because in some places we have the county engineer has the capability of doing that, or our county facilities department has the capability of overseeing the architect. And here we're talking about, okay, let's have a person or a company to provide that monitoring and oversight of the architect and the construction manager, because the court or individuals on the court don't have that technical expertise of construction. We know that there's commissioners' court around the state that are filled with contractors or developers and other people that have that knowledge and can, architect rolls out the set of drawings and they're right in the middle of that set of drawings telling us everything that's in there. And so when you don't have that expertise, it is a good position or is a good thing to have an entity to come along and be your eyes and ears for the county.
As you mentioned, Judge Lutz, when he was here, he said the most important thing you need to do is to have an on-site project manager. So when we hired Ide Bailey to do the cost as is to be or current state, future state, we put in there the cost for an on-site project manager on his recommendation. So we did include that in our cost analysis to have that. We weren't exactly sure what the role would be or what it would be called. We just called it a project manager, but having somebody on site daily, taking pictures, monitoring the progress, making sure that there's no shortcuts or defects happening, I think that's really important to have that role in place. And coincidentally, I was just yesterday was recommended to a person who actually is a retired jail architect that lives in Crescent. And he now is in that role as a consultant. So that's another, in addition to this one that Judge Massengill has found, we have another individual who just lives up the way that could also possibly fill that role. But I think that's something that we need to talk about at a future meeting.
And Commissioner, we've had individual architects, engineers, companies serve that role. And I would tell you that each of them has been successful. And they serve those roles typically a little bit differently. Many times they serve the county a little bit differently. Live Oak County, the person was an individual resident of the county that was a retired, well, I wasn't even a retired architect. He was an architect, but he did not practice. There was no competition between what we did and what they did. He was really a school architect and did mostly schools. But again, with his understanding of the process of public work, it did not necessarily have to be, someone that knows jails or someone that does this type of work. But it worked out very well for the county because, he was a resident of the county. He was there all the time. The county didn't have to have him come in or do travel and everything else, for that. So that was also a benefit. Having worked where the project manager or the rep is an entity, I think that sometimes you just need to make sure that what are the services that you are looking for in that company, and to make sure that if you do go with a construction manager at risk, as far as your construction services delivery method, that you don't overlap and are really trying to have the same thing done on some other thing, such as in your construction manager at risk. If you bring them on for pre-construction services, which is customary, they're going to be doing a constructability review on our design. They would be doing a budgeting and budget analysis on the building systems, and would be making recommendations on cost-saving measures in the pre-construction services. So that's one of the things that sometimes if you do have a program manager or a project manager and are using the construction manager at risk for pre-construction services, if you look at those two contracts, you may be overlapping in services there.
Of course, you don't want to do that because that just increase the cost rather than.
It does. It can do that, and that's what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that one way is better than the other. I just want, as you go forward, to make sure that when you're looking at these agreements, which I have a feeling y'all going to look closely at these agreements anyway, and I just had to say that, but to make sure that the scope is correct. But the construction manager role sometimes and the project management role sometimes overlap on that. So that it is important to make sure that if you do the construction manager at risk role or concept, that you're not duplicating those services, because again, you're paying for them twice,
Right.
and there's no reason to do that.
Okay. Well, on page 2, under the 1.1.1, it says the architect will develop space and use programs based on previously completed studies and diagrams, drawings produced by the architect. So the only design that I'm aware of is the one page, the floor plan that we have, the conceptual floor plan, and the one page cost estimate. Is that, or do we have something else that you're referring to in the previously completed studies, diagrams, and drawings?
Yes, ma'am. I was referring to the architectural program that was submitted for the full facility. We were actually contracted for AGCM.
Oh.
And we provided them a full, which they provided to you.
That was for a standalone jail.
That was for a standalone jail, but it had all the components for the spaces. So when we talk about a laundry, then we'd be looking at that laundry space and those needs to take those spaces and see how that overlays with this. When we're looking at the 8-man multiple occupancy cells, those spaces that we had for our new facility would also be those components for this facility. And that's what we were looking at there, is that we have done that work previously for those components, and we're taking that component input and making it into the program for this jail. In other words, we're not starting from scratch. We are acknowledging that we've gone through the process of gaining information from the sheriff's office on how they do certain things. We've looked at the jail standards, and some of this we do from project to project. But we did want to acknowledge that we had already done a lot of the programming effort on this, and we're not starting from scratch, so we can move forward very rapidly and pick up speed here. That's really what this is intended to do.
So there's things you can lift out of that document
Yes,
and
ma'am.
apply to this addition. It's not the standalone jail that design
Correct.
document was for, but you can lift some of the spaces out of there and
Correct. The component, because when we're looking at an architectural program, and not necessarily the adjacencies, but when we're looking at the individual spaces, such as when we're looking at a cell component,
okay.
it has certain requirements that we have to meet. And
Okay.
that has already been documented there, that we have that information.
Okay. So on the dollar amount that's in 1.1.3, it has 21.5, but on the sheet that we looked at, used for the bond, it's 20 million. 20,459,000. So I just wondered what was different with that number, the 20,459,000, which is from the one sheet that we had. And now it has the building construction and site work is 21.5.
At the time when we set I don't have the budget that we had there. I thought we did update the budget for you there, Commissioner, based on the 24 million.
Okay.
Is there a total on that one for the 24 million?
So are you talking about what Mr. Sabonis had for the bond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me look at that. I'll do that later. But that's what you.
Because when we were discussing okay, we were asked to basically to put together a program that would fit within the $20 million, or within $20 million. What could we do for $20 million was a task that we were presented initially on this bond go-round. We came back and presented that to court at the time. Then on that, the discussions with the road program and the jail bond program, the escalation of costs that would continue to be going, I made the recommendation that if you're spending this much here, if we could get more in the road and the jail bond program, I think it would be of benefit, because we're very close or very tight on our budget to be able to have a realistic program without having to chop off in the end.
Okay, I'll go back and look at Mr.
So
Sabonis's.
that's when we went, that was increased from 20 to 24 in one of those meetings about the bond program. And I believe that I presented another, or gave y'all an update on the.
You think you gave us another sheet that looks like this?
Yes, ma'am. That should have had 24 million at the bottom.
Can you look and resend it to us? 'Cause I don't think I have it. Or if you know which, was it the meeting right before we set the bond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll go back and look at that. Okay. Oh, he's looking for.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, okay, somewhere in here it says.
If
further
if those, if those amounts are not correct, then, we need to go back and
Okay,
look at those. But it was my understanding that we had the overall project budget that we were working on was the 24 million.
okay. So, but some of that is for things that aren't covered by, that the county has to cover. The difference between your cost in this contract or what you have here, and we still have to do other things that aren't covered, like supplies and all the IT stuff and all the things that we need to do outside of this. So there's some funds in there that are in the bond that are for that, and the project manager, things like that. So, okay. It says here the owner's budget for the cost of work as defined in 6.1. And so I went and looked at 6.1, and I think we need to review this section very closely. So all we have for estimates is this, the one-page highlight, the one-page document that we have for estimates. Section 6 talks about budget overruns, and we don't have a detailed cost estimate at this point, so I think we need to review the language. And as I was going through this and looking at the Section 6, Section 8, the different sections of the construction phase, it did, I agree with our speaker, if that's possible, and one of the things that I was thinking about is if we did a overall master services agreement and did this first part through design so that we could have more information and have more detail to flesh out in the other phases, because there's so much in Section 5 and Section 6 that we don't know yet. That just kind of mentioned that to Glenn this morning on my way up here, is what would that look like if we did a master services agreement through this schematic and design phase and then did work orders for the other phases? Because then we'd have a lot more information, and some of these things that are kind of vague now that we don't know what the budget is, we don't know what the details are. What do you think about that?
It is not customary, and I'm a little taken back as to what are you going to achieve? Because this process is, each of the phases is intended to give you more information as we move through the process. Mm-hmm. Because right now we do have very little information. Mm-hmm. And each step or each phase of the work, we are providing more information. We're providing initial budgets, more refined budgets, more refined cost of the work as we're moving through the schematic design to the design development to the construction documents. And then, depending on if you go with the construction manager at risk or you go with general contracting, which is another discussion as to, for us to come to the court and make that discussion as to what is the most feasible way to do this. If we're not doing the comprehensive services of an architect, then how do you intend to do a complete project, I guess is the real question. And are we backing up and becoming more of a consultant or the architect of record? And that's where I'm a little bit confused as to what is the role that you're asking the architect to be now.
Well, the concern I have is that, well, as you said, we don't have a lot of detail, but there's decisions that are already implied or made in sections 5 and section 6 that we don't have a detailed cost estimate at this point, but there's words in there that talk about overruns of the cost estimate, but we don't even have the cost estimate yet.
It's to protect you that if there's overruns in the cost estimate that you approve at any one of these phases, how to deal with it.
Yeah. So,
In other words, all this language, and we didn't make up most of this language.
yeah,
this is-
I understand it's a standard architect.
This is a standard form language. It is, no. And most of the things that you're asking me is not really the language that we typically do modify as far as those, because the process is intended to be that we start out with very general concepts. Very, from programming and conceptual design with a very broad general budget. We have a general budget, whether it's $20 or $21.5 million. We have that general budget. We have a general description that says that it's this number of beds and it's divided out a certain way. Then from there, we started getting that down onto paper a little bit better. But as we showed in that diagram, one of the first things we need to do is to actually get those engineers' recommendations on the soils. That's going to have a major impact there because any soils recommendations that were done back when this facility was initially done and how the foundation is there is going to be quite different than what we're getting today. We've seen that from project to project to project when you're looking at buildings that are 20, 30 years difference and adding on to them. So that's going to be input. And each of these items that we get is going to be additional input that we're going to have and come back and say, we have now more information. And some of these costs we're going to be looking at going up, and other things we're going to be able to possibly save money going down to stay within that budget. And that's the entire project or the entire design process is intended to be the pluses and the minuses of all the intricate items that go into the project. The selection on the mechanical equipment, whether we go to rooftop units or whether we go with split systems or whether we go with the chill water system, depending on all the elements that go into it and the availability of actually equipment over here this next year, and we change our ideas based on our concepts. We change those systems from project to project based on availability, based on current codes. So
I guess to answer your question, I'm not trying to change the role. I was just trying to help us with the understanding and have more detail as far as once you finish the design, the master services agreement would include all of the phases, but the next phases would be informed by your design because, as you said, you'll have much more information after the design phase is over to understand what the construction phase is going to look like. And I just thought that might be an avenue to take so that all the things that we are totally not aware of in the later phases, we'll have a much better idea of that after your design phase is over, after the jail commission has approved the schematic design. So anyway, we can leave that for now. But so on the next section with the owners, the design phase and the milestones, I really think that this needs to be a lot more detailed, a full project schedule here. These dates are very vague and,
Excuse me, where are you?
oh, I'm sorry, on the top of page 3.
Oh, well, okay, I was over in 6.
Sorry, that was, I was just.
I got a couple of comments about that when we come back to it.
Okay. So 1.1.4, where it has the kind of high-level project schedule, can we have in there, if, I now understand that there's 3 times that you go to to Texas Commission on Jail Standards for approval, the schematic design, a 40% design, and the construction document review. So I know that the dates aren't going to be, they may move a little one way or the other, but shouldn't we have a more solid understanding of when those things are going to happen? The general dates just leave too much to chance, I think, and are too high level. One of the other things that I think we need, it talks about, number 3 says substantial completion date. We need to define what substantial completion is. This should be an agreed upon definition before we sign the contract. It's better to be clear on this. It's my understanding that this definition dictates when you are paid like your final amount less the punch list.
That's for the contractor, but that's not how we're paid.
Okay, so,
Substantial completion does have a legal definition within the terms here. It's referred to in here that all these terms do follow along with the standard terms as far as how they're used in the general conditions, A201. So I can get that document and as far as substantial completion and what that legally means,
Okay.
that it's used for the benefit of the county, but for its intended use. But going back to I was trying to find in here someplace it says the architect shall provide a schedule for the county.
It looks like that is defined as a project is sufficiently finished for the owner to use for its intended purpose, even if minor punch list items remain. So
Yes, sir.
would that be I mean, you may need to. It's AI.
AI, not Architectural Institute. Artificial. Okay. Okay, but you can
References
pull,
on that.
you
so
can
let me-
pull that out or put next to this, put a asterisk with the definition at the footnote or something.
It does specifically state the AI.
Okay. So on the schedule, concern about making this part a little more detailed?
No, ma'am, I can work up a schedule. I was just looking to see if there was something already in here saying that we would do that.
Yeah, I think certain, just, mainly high-level things, the 3 dates that are going to the commission, and then the certificate of occupancy from Granbury, the certificate of occupancy from the jail commission, those big, high-level things, I think, need to be more exact, what you have here.
You wanted those in the schedule, or you wanted those to be requirements to obtain? Did you want those to be milestones at this point, or did you want, because that is getting into a very detailed, at this point, to be trying to determine when are we going to have the occupancy certificate of occupancy from the city of Granbury?
So,
I mean, all those things are prerequisites for substantial completion, but
okay. So what would your recommendation be on making this part, this 1.1.4, not the detailed step-by-step project plan that you're going to have later, but more detailed than what's here? Some high-level milestones that are, this is so general, June, July 2026, that really actually means July 31st, because you could go to the end, right?
yes, or we could
Yeah.
be completed early, but
So could you do some,
well, and some of it is going to be dependent on our construction delivery method, because and how y'all choose on your purchasing to do something. There are additional decisions that will need to be made by the court. We will make some recommendations. If we go with general construction, our general contractor, our recommendation would be, when we receive those proposals from the general contractor, that we allow them to establish a number of days for construction. And then we do make that an evaluation criteria. So some contractors will say that it's going to take 24 months. Some will say it's going to take 20 months, or in those numbers of days. And some may say it's a shorter time frame, but the shorter time frame obviously is a higher value to you, because you're paying to put your prisoner someplace else. If you wanted to, you could say that no, you wanted it done in 16 months. Now, to do that, the contractor's probably going to have to pay a premium and charge more money for that. At this point, we haven't made all those decisions. So we have some general milestones that we placed in the contract instead of a detailed schedule. But
which then goes back to why I think we need the design phase first, so that we have more information, so that we can have more specific dates for the phases. But
that's the process. That's the entire design process of what we're contracting for here, is to go through this process to get us to that point, with the anticipation that we are going to continue the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess no.
So what can you do in this section 1.1.4 to talk about the schematic date, the 3 times that you need to go to the jail
Yes, ma'am.
commission?
And I was looking through here because I thought I put it in here that we are required to go in there, but
are you saying you can change some of this?
I can provide, and I would rather just do it as an attachment. We would reference it and put it as an exhibit with here to have it as.
Actually, you're reading my mind. After all the questions that I just said, maybe we should just have an attachment with the full project schedule, or at least, if not a full project schedule at this point, the high-level milestones, but more detailed than what's here. That makes sense? So at what point in the process, I know you have both here, whether it's the design bid, build, the sealed proposals, or the construction manager at risk. When do we need to make that decision?
We really need to make that within the first couple months of the design process.
Okay.
I would say, once we get under contract, that's sort of the next process to start that discussion on how you want to do that. We can do that simultaneously, but if we're assisting in that process, we really need to be under contract to assist in that process.
Okay. But at this point, it's fine to have it the way you've listed it because we haven't made that decision yet.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so on 1.1.7, is this where as I was mentioning earlier, and you've talked about it at length today, the owner's rep or agent? The owner identifies the following representative. I know it's to be named later, but shouldn't that say the owner's agent or the owner's rep or the project manager or something else there on 1.1.7?
Right now, it's the chief executive of Commissioners Court. They are still representing the entity right now. And I'm not sure that this language is the same as a separate entity owner's representative, but.
Well, there's so much throughout the project, it talks about the owner will be involved in design decisions. I mean, all through the document. And so when I actually was reading that part first, and I went like, the owner, okay, what is the definition of the owner? And I went back here and I was like, okay, that seems like that needs to be something, like you said, someone who understands all the things around construction. We all have our different levels of expertise, but on different things. And I know Judge Massengale's got a lot of great experience, but I'm not sure that he's the one that should make the design decision.
How about we just put in there some language that says representative as designated by the Commissioners Court, with the default position being Judge Massengale, because you may need somebody to make a decision right at this moment before we hire somebody. So
Customarily, this person here is a person that we go to and say they need to sign, they need to be the signatory for any official documents, that in the phase. If we need somebody designating the architect as for the accessibility reviews, or signing those forms or anything else, that all those things that have to go in the process of the project. Right now, that person would be it. Some things, the court would give the judge the authority to do that. Some places, we've had to go back for each and every document to be ever signed about the project to be brought to Commissioners Court. And to go through the process of why do you need to send that to the architectural barriers? Why do you need to send this to the jail commission? Why do you need to? And we've had to present that to courts. So we can do whatever your process needs to be, but eventually someone, like you say, Commissioner Andrews, someone needs to be that person. And if it's, as designated by Commissioner's Court, then Commissioner's Court needs to designate, on an ongoing basis for each action, who's going to sign that. So if we have a change order, and we very seldom historically have had change orders, but if we have a change order that needs to be signed, That's a change, would be a change to the contract time or cost or scope. It has to be a change in the contract. That has to be brought to Commissioners Court because no one can act it on their own for those contractual things.
Okay, so this is not necessarily the person making day-to-day decisions or whatever. This is not who you go to if you have a question or whatever as our representative.
This is the
somebody
person that
deciding legally.
we have to go to get the signatory responsibility.
Gotcha.
there.
Okay, then that
No.
seems
So-
appropriate then. Are you?
That's,
But I understand now that, no, okay, who are we working with on a day-to-day basis to, work through the design? Who's going to be
right,
invited to all the design workshops?
because it says the owner, and
And-
the
and-
owner
and I
is
think
Judge
that-
Massengill, so
And
he's
right
gonna,
now,
so,
that is handled differently with each commissioner's court.
okay,
And whether or not you designate an owner's representative, which is a person or an entity outside of commissioner's court, whether or not you designate a commissioner or the judge or two commissioners, that is up to you as to how you want the court to be represented in any of those meetings.
yeah,
Or whether or not we have to, to call a special meeting or to make all the reviews, interim reviews, in a commissioner's court meeting.
yeah. So
So-
just for example, for anyone who's out there that wants to understand what I'm talking about, on section 3.2, which is schematic design phase services, it says the architect shall review information furnished by the owner and shall review laws, codes, and regulations applicable to the architect's services. Architect will develop the architectural program of functional spaces and necessary specialty equipment, and once approved by owner, will become the owner's program, which I think that's very important. So is this the owner commissioner's court, or is the owner, according to this?
Anywhere that it says approved by owner would have to be an action by commissioner's court.
Okay, well,
That's
that
by
takes,
my understanding, and I don't want to give any legal advice here, but my understanding is that by law, I reference it in the back that I've got to, work within the statutes and also the open meetings and open records and those other things here, but I have to abide by that. So that how your commissioner's court works and how it works in the state is that I've got to come back to court to get an approval. All of our approvals have to go through commissioner's court. So anywhere it does say approval, owner's approval, it does mean an action by commissioner's court.
okay, and
You can
then,
put that, actually, you can fix that on the first page where you got the owner is Hood County. Just put by and through the Hood County Commissioners Court.
Yes, sir.
And then you cover all
It
that.
should have said that, and I noticed last night that it didn't say that.
Yeah, so just put that in there and you got it.
where's that? On the cover page?
Page number 1, who the contract is between.
And where it says Hood County, Texas, it should say Hood County Commissioner.
No, you leave Hood County, Texas, and you put
It
by and
is-
through the Hood County's
Yeah.
Commissioners Court.
It will read Hood County, Texas, by and through the Hood County Commissioners Court.
That's why you see where my confusion was then, because 1.1.7 defines the owner, and then all of these individual sections, and it's all over. I'm just using section 3 for the examples. The architect shall present its preliminary evaluation to the owner and shall discuss with the owner alternative approaches. So that's going to happen during a commissioner's court or a special called meeting, is what you're saying?
Whenever we have to make a decision, it does need to be by a commissioner's court. Now, we typically, we list, we're under 1.1.7, is that when we need that decision made, is that we notify the county judge typically, that we need to have an action, and that it's agendized. If y'all choose it a different way, whether you want it to be the purchasing agent, the sheriff, or somebody else to say, okay, those are the persons that need to bring it to Commissioner's Court, then we need to put that in here and say, you know, this is how it needs to be brought to the owner. But yes, those decisions need to be brought up as an agenda item.
That helps tremendously.
And you could fix 1.1.7 just by saying that it goes through Judge Massengill to be placed on the agenda if time permits. And then, or whoever the representative is. And then if time permits, he can put it on the agenda for the Commissioner's Court. If it doesn't, then somebody's got to make a decision. If it's, I mean, I don't foresee too many things coming up where you call on Friday and I got to have a decision by Monday morning. But if that happens, somebody's got to be able to do something, I assume, correct?
And Commissioner, no, typically, if it's those type of things, typically are a construction issue, and the architect does have to make some decisions sometimes and have to come back to the court and say, you know, it's either on me as the architect of record, know that I have to make the right decision, or come back to court and explain myself.
But you need to have somebody to come to, right?
Well, that's where I thought the owner's rep came in. That's where I thought when the things that Commissioner Eagles
The owner's rep can fill that void as far as, you know, facilitating that, but still as far as the decision-making process, typically the owner's rep cannot fill the decision-making process role. That they can share information, they can package things, they can get everything ready.
recommendation.
And they can make recommendations, but they cannot make that decision, or they cannot be the decision maker.
Okay. So,
What you're saying there in 1.1.7 is that, you know, the judge is the point of contact to get it before Commissioner's Court.
Correct.
I mean, that's really what
Correct.
we're saying.
And if you hire an owner's representative, all you have to do is notify me that this is a person to go through for, the contract or whatever, however. I'm pretty easy to get along with that.
Situation, and you got a lot here, but you need a vent there. Which one goes where? That's, that's not what we're talking about at this particular point, right? That would be our agent or whatever representative that says, put the light there and the vent there.
No.
But
The architect, Commissioner, the architect better be the one that's really answering that question.
okay, all right.
And again, I hope that I'm not going back to the owner's representative to ask those questions.
Right.
I should be going back to the owner's representative and say, this is what we needed to do. And whether or not there's a cost involved or a credit involved or anything else, we should be informing the owner's rep as to what's happening so that they can report back to the court on a regular basis. This is what happened out there on the project. This is why it happened, because I got an explanation from the architect and the contractor as to what was going on here. But they should not, the owner's rep should not have to be the one making the decisions. And that does end up being a problem sometimes, because if the contractor goes and starts asking the owner's rep, can I move this, or is that okay that I didn't get that plug in the right place? And it's up too high or it's down too low and doesn't meet the accessibility, and then later on we have to change it. Who pays for that? Well, it should be the contractor, because he asked the wrong person. That's why there's very direct lines of communication, in that the architect is the actual approver during construction, because then it's on our back. It's on my shoulders as to why we do things. That intersecting wall can't be within that 8 inches or that 1'4", whatever that clearance requirement is. and all those things that sometimes on the job don't seem to be too big of a deal. You know, we'd like a little bit more room here or something, and somebody goes out and looks at it, says, well, can we do this? Let's make sure we go through the process.
So, I was confused on the 1.1.9 in, maybe it's just the way it's worded, but in one place it says the owners to hire the geotechnical engineer, but in 4.1.2.1.2, it says DRG will engage a geotechnical engineer. And in 5.5, it also says the owner to hire. So is it just the way it's worded, or how to?
The standard form puts that responsibility on the owner. And what we have done under the supplemental services has said that the architect will take care of that responsibility for the owner. We haven't changed the responsibility. We just said we're going to take care of that responsibility for the owner. And we're going to manage that person, and we're going to have the oversight over that or that entity, and make sure that they do everything right. So we're going to take care of the building and everything that goes along with that.
So do we need to clarify that in 1.1.9 and 5.5, where it says 5.5 says that owner shall furnish services for geotechnical engineers? But in 4.1.
You're still providing them. You're just providing them through the architect. But
Okay, so 4.1.2.1.2 says the geotechnical engineer, DRG, proposes to engage the services of the Texas registered professional engineer. Owner will pay the actual cost of the services. So are we?
I can note here that is per
4.1.2.1.2.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to say what?
Parenthetically, does the architects come up with this numbering system? Just asking.
I mentioned earlier that I've been doing this for 50 years. This form hasn't changed a whole lot since I learned about it in college, or when my dad showed me this the first time and said, son, you're going to need to know these forms because we can't change them. We need to use them. We're members of the AIA, he says, but any chance you get to using a one-page letter agreement with an owner, go for it, because everybody understand a whole lot better. But no, these haven't. Yes, they've modified some things, but all the biggest modifications over the years is on sustainability and some other issues there, and some changes things. But these sections on the customary things where the owner has done it hasn't changed, and it's just something that we have always just said we're going to take care of it. But to make sure that it's clear, I'll put under 1.1.9 under geotechnical engineer, I'll make a statement here that the architect will provide.
Okay.
Per 4 point whatever it is. And no, sir, I did not come up with a numbering system.
Wayne, would you like to sit down? You can sit at that table right there and use that microphone if you'd
there a
like to do
microphone
that.
there?
You've been standing for a while, and then may.
Well, the problem is that I'll start moving back and talk with my hands and everything else there. So I appreciate it.
We're still in the ones if you feel the need to sit down at
I,
some point.
I have a feeling that it will be here pretty soon. We'll do that under 2 and 3. I do think that's a pretty good idea.
Is the little green light on the microphone?
Now it is.
All right.
I was just worried about trying to sit down after my knees locked up here, and then I may fall out of my chair. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay. Okay, so on 1.2, this paragraph, this is, again, one of the concerns that I had about having such very little information at this point in time. The owner and the architect may rely on the initial information, which is a high-level conceptual floor plan and this one-page cost document. Both parties, however, recognize that the initial information may materially change, and in that event, the owner and architect shall appropriately adjust the architect's services schedule for the architect's services and the architect's compensation. The owner shall adjust the owner's budget for the cost of work, which we don't have yet, and the owner's anticipated design, which we don't have, and construction milestones as necessary to accommodate material changes in the initial information. So it just worries me because it feels like we're entering into a kind of a wide open with no guardrails, because the initial information is so high level, just that one-page document. Of course, there's going to be material changes because that's all we have is the high-level document. So this is where it dawned on me that maybe we just need to be in the design phase until we have better ideas, but we've talked about that.
That's where all these decisions, I guess, I keep on going back
I know,
to
we've kind of,
that.
we've discussed this already, so I'm just,
The design phase is where all this is happening, and the design phase is where all this changes. So if there's going to be a change in scope, hopefully it's in the first schematic design. Because everything, if y'all decide, okay, we see that with the population change, or there's, and I'm just going to talk hypothetically here, for some reason that, all of a sudden that you, the county, decides that you're going to increase the scope of this by another 100 beds now. Not for the future design, but right now, and it's going to be a $30 million project instead of a $20 million project. It is going to take us more work. I would probably come back at that point and say, we need to be compensated more for the additional work because our engineers are going to have to put in more mechanical systems, electrical systems, everything's going to be modified here to make this project 50% larger than where we're at right now. If that happened, that's what this would be, talking about. If y'all say, okay, and the sheriff and I have already discussed this, hey, Wayne, the female population keeps on growing. We're going to have to reassign more of those cells as female cells and male cells. That's not a substantial work effort difference. That's within the design that we have there. And we're going to make accommodation for that within this process of refining the design. So we're taking care of that within this process of just going from programming to schematic design development, and that's one of the refinements that we're going to continue to do. And I hope that can sort of set out that yes, we know that there's going to be more details, more information that's going to continue to change and evolve. We may get to a point here and we've had it in the last few years. Refrigerant types have changed, and some of them are somewhat flammable, and may not be appropriate to use on jails. And so we've kind of shied away from that in different locations, and how they're used. So, we've changed systems, based on some of the things that the industry has changed. We're already past the first of the year, some of those things coming into, effect on certain things. So we're not in a real precarious moment. So I feel pretty comfortable that there's no aha things out there, gotcha type things that they're going to come up and get us, or that we're anticipating, but there's always changes. But the only reason why I don't sit here and say, well, let's just strike out architects' compensation is that, it is only, and I'm glad we're on record here, because you can go back and say, well, on this date, you said this, Mr. Architect. And the only reason why I don't want to take out architect's compensation out of that paragraph is that in case you do make a substantial change in the program in the early phases of design. Now, later phases of design, I really would discourage doing that, because it gets very costly. Once we get engineers, actually designing systems and have to go back and redesign systems, it's not just, people in my office, and I don't get to make solely those decisions on my own as to what we can absorb or not. And I've got to pass through those costs, and be compensated for it. But, early on, we can make a lot of changes there and do a lot of things easier in those early design times. So.
Could I
Yes, sir.
just throw in something? This is kind of an umbrella, but one point, and I'm just thinking out loud here, 1.1.3 says that the budget for this project is $21.5 million, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you go to 6.5, it says if any time the architect's estimate exceeds the owner's budget for the cost of the work, the architect shall make appropriate recommendations to the owner to adjust the project size, quantity, or budget for the cost of work. And the owner shall cooperate with making such adjustments, and that's covered in 6.6. If the owner's budget for the cost of the work at the conclusion of the construction documents phase services is exceeded by the lowest bona fide bid, I had a law professor that called that bona fide, but I call it bona fide. The owner shall give written approval of the increase, authorize rebidding, terminate it with section 9.5, or consult with the architect to revise the project program, or implement, number 5, implement any other mutually acceptable alternative. I mean, doesn't that cover our budget and then everything underneath it in a broad way? If there's changes that might come up? Or am I reading this wrong?
Yes, sir.
You see, I'm trying to simplify this a little bit.
This here, it talks about, within the scope of the project that we're talking about.
Right.
The one that we were talking about a second ago was talking about if the program changed, or if we increased the project, changed the scope of the project. In other words, if you add 100 beds, if you added 100 beds, then 6.5 or 6.6 doesn't apply to just keep it all within the budget. If you decide, or if the court decided to materially change the project scope, then that basically takes it back to square one, and we have to reestablish what the budget is for that.
The 1.2, the owner,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, so,
But I'm in agreement over here as far as if everything stays the same and we're not changing, scope, or y'all not redirecting me to go do something else, and it's the architect doing his services and it's our designing process, then yes, sir. This tells us exactly what we have to do if we exceed that budget. Yes, sir.
Architectural agreement, you can't really change a lot of these terms in here.
there's,
Judge, I made I've worked with, again, outside counsel or county's counsel, Bickerstaff, he's Smiley Delgado, and Allison and Bass, and others that have looked at our contracts and have written specific contracts, and I've told them time and time again, whatever specific language you want to put in here, I really don't have too much of a heartburn on it. As long as the initial scope is okay, our fee structure is okay, and we know that we're going to do it. Because throughout this process, the only thing my real job is to make sure you understand what I'm doing along the way, and that you're a satisfied client. Because if you're not and things go awry, it doesn't matter if I win or lose in court. I've already lost the day that any of this is contested.
Everybody's lost if you got to go to litigation.
Right, or even if it's a mediation or any of those things, once I've lost the confidence of the court in here, I've lost. So y'all need to be somewhat satisfied with these terms. And y'all are going to be a lot more satisfied with them than I am, because the only two that I'm really concerned about is making sure that I know what my general scope is and what the fee structure is, so that I don't get messed up on the billing to y'all and then get messed up with the auditor. As long as I stay straight with the auditor, and as long as I stay, get the project, design to meet the jail commission's requirements, and they'll certify it at the end, because the jail commission won't come down and do their inspection until they have the city and the fire marshal and everybody else, those certificates of occupancy. So I know I have to do that, and that's something that I always have to do, and maybe that's why, sometimes I don't delineate each and every step that has to go in here, because I'm regulated in so many ways on a county project. We're regulated statutorily on the process we have to go through on our construction services. We're regulated by the jail commission on what we have to do to turn this facility over to you to get it, in operation. And they have a whole list of things before we can even ask them to come in and look at the facility. At each of the phases, they have a 10-page checklist of items that they go through and say whether they're satisfactory or they comment on them, and we have to answer that at each of the phases to get through this process. So, we are already regulated, and we have to meet the accessibility codes, because if I don't turn in my drawings within a certain time frame after I put my seal on there, they'll fine me $10,000 for that. That's real, I mean, to me, that's real money, I mean, because I don't get that back. I mean, even if I appeal it, so there are so many things that are not necessarily covered in here, except that I say that I have to meet the statute of the state of Texas too. And with y'all being a subdivision of that, that helps. It really makes it simpler. That we can only do what we're allowed to do under the statutes, and by that I have to follow certain rules. And I have to perform, or else, one, you don't pay me, and two, you can terminate this at any time for cause or convenience.
Questions on section 1? Okay. On Article 2.3, it says the architect shall identify a representative authorized to act on behalf of the architect with respect to this project. Do you have someone that you're going to name as to represent you?
Didn't he name himself?
Right now, we have on the through the design phases and everything, that I'm, as the president of the company, that I will be the signee, and I'll sign off on everything for the company.
Don't anticipate identifying a different representative other than yourself?
If we need to at some point, I will have to come back and tell y'all who I would recommend on that. But.
On the general liability, all the auto liability, all the insurances that are listed there, the county's named as the additional insured. I know Melissa, our HR person, said that those limits were appropriate, but I just want to be sure that we're showing the county as the additional insured. Okay. Okay.
I know the county should be the holder on that. I don't know if it's stated on there, Glenn, as a additional insured, but we can make sure that that's on the certificate.
Okay. And I don't have any other questions on 2. Anyone else? 3 dot. 3.1.1, the progress report to the owner, it doesn't specify the frequency. Could you specify the frequency, and what format do you anticipate that to be in? Is that going to be like in a standard, like Gantt chart format? Is it going to be a verbal status? What will that be? Progress to.
It's typically more in a letter format or memo format.
Okay.
Commissioner.
And do you think that's monthly, or how often?
It's typically at phase or monthly when we get into construction, but it's when we're making our report to Commissioner's Court. So whenever we come to the court and make that, and when we get into construction, typically what we do in construction is that we have a monthly owner's architect contractor meeting, and then at that point is that we do have the meeting, and then those minutes that are developed out of that meeting, that we turn those over to Commissioner's Court
Okay.
as a formal document that they have on a monthly basis as a
Could
report.
there be something that says in here at least monthly, or at least, it's just right now, it just is
Do
wide
you
open.
want me to put that in? I guess
Yes,
Okay.
something
I'm answering
that-
questions, but I didn't know if you want me to
Yes,
actually
something
notate it.
that
Okay.
will explicitly say the frequency of the report, the progress report. So, we have an expectation that once a month we'll get a report, or once every 2 months, or minimum frequencies. If you think it's more often during the construction phase, you can say that. What do you think it should say?
I'll say on at least a monthly basis.
Okay. So 3.1.3 talks about that the architect shall submit for the owner's approval a schedule for the performance of the architect services. So,
I knew it was in there someplace.
Yeah.
I just didn't recall where it was at the time.
okay. So 3.2.1 and 3.2.5, this through that whole section is talking about things that we don't have yet. That our architect shall review information furnished by the owner. You're going to prepare preliminary evaluation of the owner's program, schedule, budget for the cost of the work, project site, et cetera. But we don't have any of those. So are you creating that, or? This just what does that mean?
I think that's the work he's going to do, is it not?
Yeah, this is the architect's services listed out here.
Yeah, but it says the architect will review information furnished by the owner. So what are you expecting from us?
Well, that was the programming, right?
Right, that was the program information that we discussed.
You mean for the standalone jail?
No, for the, this, in the previous,
The AGCM document?
Part of this saying, 161 bed addition to the facility. The cells are going to be laid out as discussed in the programming and that kind of thing. Isn't that kind of information that we've already transmitted to you for this project?
yes, sir.
Okay.
It's the information that you provided me that and also know as the sheriff shared his classification and information as far as males, females, those type of things that we ask. It's when we ask for questions on how are they dealing with their laundry service. When we look at machines and their how are they deal with their detergent? How does that get into the machines?
Because it says furnished by the owner, which is us, and I just didn't know what the expectation was, that we have something that we're supposed to prepare for you. or you already have the information based on the information you've already got from the sheriff and the
And
AGC?
I'm trying to think of a way to unless you want me to somehow say that it's, whatever worse, it requesting of the owner, or?
I mean, if it's already provided, you've already got it all.
Well, I mean, we're going to continue to ask information.
Okay. So it's,
And it's an ongoing process.
okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that there wasn't some document you were thinking
ma'am.
that we were providing you. Okay. 613.6. So on 3.6, the architect shall visit the site at intervals appropriate to the stage. And in another section, it looks like you're going to be here about once a month during construction. It has 20 visits. So in reading this section, it has words like generally familiar with the progress and quality of work. Determine in general, the architect shall not be required to make exhaustive or continuous on-site inspections to check on the quality or quantity of the work. So is that why, as I'm trying to reconcile this, is it doesn't seem to me that once a month is exhaustive. But I do think somebody needs to be here more than once a month, so that's why we need the owner's rep. Is that what?
Yeah, and whether the 20 trips is the right number or not the right number on a project of this size, we have two dedicated construction administration people that typically rotate on the project. Hitting those projects at least twice a month. Then the project architects or the principal architects will kind of fill in between. So we will be there at least every other week, if not sometimes every week, depending on the phase of the work. So sometimes we will have to be there a couple times in 1 week for concrete pours and other inspections and installation. Other times it may be a little less frequent. It may be 10 days in between or something that we're not on site. But owner's representative, is there as eyes all the time. If you require them to do that, we don't have that on every job. We do require a photo log and a daily log of the contractor providing to us who all is on the site, what activities are being conducted that day, and for them to report that to us on a daily process. So we know what activities are there so we can anticipate, do we need to get somebody on the site to see this work that's going on. So as they gear up or whatever, that we can get more people on the site at the appropriate time.
What you just explained is not what's in 4.2.3, where it lists the limits below are reached. The architect shall notify the owner. This is the times that you'll be on site. So what's included all the things that you said, which is a couple of times a month and other people will be here more often, that's not included in the cost then, because your costs are based on 2 reviews, 20 visits to the site by the architect during construction.
The 20 is probably not right. Let's see, the 30 or so visits to the site. That probably got picked up from another contract commissioner. So,
Okay. So you think that needs to be changed?
yeah, I would just put that at 30 or whatever, then that way I think we'd all be better off on
Oh,
that.
yeah, that seems more reasonable to me. I just thought once a month was a project this big by the time, if you come back, which I have in here somewhere else, like, if a mistake or a deviation is made the day after you were on site, you won't know about it for another month. It's too late. There's already been things done, and it would be very costly to correct that defect or deviation. So,
And again, this is, looking at our staff, those 30 visits kind of list our architectural staff. We do still have the engineering sub-consultants that we
That'll be
require to come in and do, for the plumbing engineer to make sure that they do the underground review of what's underground, the top out when the piping is topped out, and then the finish out of when they get all the fixtures and everything in place. So we
Okay.
do multiple visits on there. It's electrical, like when they get switchgear in, and different things that have to be your major component, times of things that really have to be right, to make sure that they get all those things signed off. Making sure that in between, we're looking at some of their things and we're overlapping that. Because, if we see conduit, if it's not going up straight or it's not properly anchored, all that, does get picked up on an ongoing basis, and the contractor is asked to remove and replace. And if it's not getting removed and replaced, then that's when that pay application becomes very important, because then they won't get certified or paid for that work that isn't appropriate or going in place appropriately.
so going back to the generally familiar, so if you, the architect, are generally familiar with the progress, who's detailed familiar with the progress? The words like generally and generally familiar?
Somebody decided that those are legal terms that needed to be in the standard form verbiage. And for the last, I don't want to
50
say
years.
too many more times, but for many, many, many years, we have been instructed and told in all of our education and continuing education that some of these things should not be changing. And that's some of the language that, it keeps us to where we don't step into the contractor's responsibility.
Okay,
The contractor is responsible for their work. They're responsible for their quality of the work.
okay,
And so we try to keep those lanes parallel, but yes, we're approving certain things, but when we approve things, it's a specific approval of something. And then we're not in charge of their day-to-day management and coordination of the work, which they are responsible for.
okay,
So that is something that falls under their category of the
they're the ones-
day-to-day responsibility for managing and coordinating all the work. Especially and the construction manager, their specific contracts typically state that they are responsible for the day-to-day management and coordination of the work.
okay. And then on 3.6.2.4, can you take? Oh, we're coming back after lunch.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. Is that in your schedule, sir?
You've got to be somewhere this evening, don't you?
Well, I'm heading to Liberty, Texas, but I just have to tell my wife that I'm picking her up later, so. Hey, if y'all have more to go through here, I mean.
Substantially complete, that's the word of art is used in all contracts. That, with Mr. Klein here, you and Ms. Samuelson, that could be really taken care of rather than talking about the auditor and purchaser and the rest of the good stuff. Would that not work, Ms. Samuelson?
Well, that's what we had asked at the beginning, but, Wayne suggested we have a workshop, but I think Commissioner Eagle has some questions too, don't you? You said when we get to a part, you had something.
Actually, as we've gone through this, I've kind of worked through my questions, and I boiled it down to the budget. And if you decide if it is determined it has to be exceeded, we talk about it. I mean, it's kind of that kind of answers my question. That yeah, this is a standard contract. We also tweaked the definition of the owner, so we got that fixed. So really, I'm in pretty good shape on it myself. So.
Yeah, I mean, the only real question I had on this we talked about was the arbitration or litigation or whatever, and I think that I'd rather see that go to arbitration as opposed to litigation. We kind of talked about that, and you said you were okay with that. If the rest of us would be okay with that.
Oh, I do have something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and say what you respond to him.
No, most of the outside legal counsel that we've dealt with have told us that they prefer to go mediation first, and then if they can't resolve it in mediation, go to litigation, but rather than arbitration, because of dealing with Commissioner's Court, it just gets very burdensome to deal with Commissioner's Court in an arbitration setting. But I don't know all the legal ins and outs of that, so if y'all want it in there and can give me some guidance on that, how you want the dispute resolution dealt with, we can do that as an exhibit and say dispute resolution be dealt with per exhibit A or whatever, if you want to change it, because I don't want to be the one that sets up how your dispute resolution would be, other than what I've seen in the past from other entities doing it this way. Well, and again,
Mediation is first always, right?
right,
So-
and it's mediation, and mediation has to come back to Commissioner's Court to be approved anyway, and it's not just a clean, between the mediators and your representative or whatever, still has to come back to Commissioner's Court and be agreed to or not agreed to by Commissioner's Court. And if that's not agreed to, then no, it's either no, you go to, but again, like I said, no, if I let it go to that point, I'm done anyway. I should have taken care of some things way before that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I talked to Mr. Sabonis before. I just want to make sure that we're going to be able to coordinate. He was very emphatic about timing and about letting this bond out, and he talked about a reimbursable expense on the $1.7 million on your contract. So are you going to be able to work with Mr. Sabonis on timing as far as the finance is concerned? And the wording of he sent me a reimbursement agreement that I have not. We talked about it right before I came over here. But you can work with us on that part of it.
Yes, sir. Typically, what most counties do on the bonds is that they approve or they do a reimbursement resolution.
Right.
to where any monies that they expend on fees or any thing related to the project prior to issuance of the bonds, that they are reimbursed out of the issuance of that bond. And that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, okay.
He probably can tell you a little bit better the terminology on that,
But if there's any timing requirement on y'all's part, you can work with us on that.
yes, sir.
I'm good. So,
You don't want to come back, or you can't make it?
I'd rather, if there's any additional items that,
Yeah.
if there's additional items that we need to put on here, then let's.
I think we can
I'm-
probably get through it in 30 more minutes, so
That's fine with me.
I'm okay to stay if, or we could not,
I've got to leave, so, thank you for putting down.
yes.
do we have a request for at least a 5-minute break? So, and you figure we got about 30 minutes left?
Yeah.
on 3.6.3.1, is this the owner's agent that should be reviewing and certifying payments to the contractors? Or is that to be determined?
No, the architect would do that.
So the owner's agent isn't reviewing the work that's
They
complete?
They could always know. A lot of times we'll have another line for them to sign off on if you want them to do that. But
So,
typically.
yeah. So the architect would make sure that it
Yeah,
was
the
complied with
architect
your.
has the duty to certify that it comes across first as an application for payment.
Okay.
And then it becomes the certificate of payment once the architect certifies that this amount is due and payable.
Okay, well
But then the owner's rep would typically review that and sign off for, that y'all would know that they are in concurrence with that.
okay. So could that be added as one of these? It's got subject to all the different things. Can it also say subject to review and approval by the owner's agent?
No, because you don't have one right now. I'm just, you haven't hired anybody, so I would, and you may not. So if you don't, then we have this requirement in this contract that says we have to do a subject to this person that does not exist right now.
Well, you could
We
just
could,
say, if,
but you could direct me or tell me later on, Wayne, to add this, but I'm pushing back more in principle. I mean, it would be easy for me to say yes to all these.
Mm-hmm.
But really and truthfully, that one I don't think is necessary because y'all can establish the policy. I still have to go and talk with the auditor and get the rules here of when do I need to have that pay up in. I need to tell the contractor, okay, you need to get it to me on this date so that I can review it and get it to whoever the county needs to have on their date. Does it need to go between anybody else of purchasing or the auditor or treasurer? Every county, we have to go through that process because it's not just this contractual thing. There's other laws that require the process to be in place for payments. So that's why
well, I mean, we could fix that by just saying if the owner's agent, if it exists, or if one is named or something, but you're just saying that we need to have a process between us and the auditor that says after you've approved payment, the owner's agent needs to approve payment.
It doesn't need to be in my contract because
Okay.
either way, I'm going to certify that payment.
Okay.
And then from there, it goes into your process.
Okay. Then, and that,
And whether or not you do or do not, otherwise I've got to get involved in your process.
Okay,
And
got it.
that-
okay.
I knew I wasn't explaining that right, but thank you.
Okay, that makes sense, thanks. So I didn't even ask this question earlier, but I don't see it in here. Is there a process for amending this? Because we've talked about that kind of throughout the day, that if we need that, we can amend.
There's a one phrase someplace in here that it can only be amended by a written agreement.
Did you see that, Alan? So on, now we're in, I'm on section 4 unless anyone has any other questions. Section 4, where this chart is, section 4 dot. It says detailed cost estimates beyond that required in section 3 is not provided. So Where did the detailed cost estimates come from?
If, we're not gonna do a detailed cost estimates unless y'all specifically want those, but, typically, if you go through a construction management, process, and the construction manager can provide a more detailed,
Okay,
cost estimate.
okay, thanks. That's good.
We have provided cost estimating services as a third-party cost estimator, but it requires hiring estimators to do that costing for you.
But you're saying we're going to get that from the construction manager?
Right.
Okay,
If
thank
you go construction manager route, you're not going to need us to do an estimate and then have them do an estimate.
Okay, and on the sections where it's talking about the supplemental services, I thought when we talked about this well, 2 times ago, that I just want to be sure I didn't read it wrong. The allowance noted here, the actual cost, for example, of the landscape architect not to exceed $24,000. Does that mean that's what you're estimating that the landscape architect will be, or is that saying that your 15% will not be more than 24?
No, that has to include the entire amount for theirs and ours.
Okay, I just want to, I thought that's what it said, but then I
Yes.
read it again. I was like, no, it could be interpreted the other way, that the 24,000 is just your 15%. I was like, I don't think that's what he meant.
No, no, I thought you meant was our 15% on top of that. No.
No, I
The
was,
actual cost plus 15% is
Not
within
to
each of these allowances.
okay. That's what I thought when I
Yes.
read it the first time, but when I read it again, I thought maybe I'm reading that
Well,
wrong.
that'd be, yeah, no.
That'd be crazy, right?
Well, I could see where somebody could make a profit at that.
Yeah. Okay,
not
and
what
so
we're-
you fixed the conflict with the geotech, right?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
up front. Yes.
4.2.5, do we need to have a force majeure clause in here? It says, if the services covered by this agreement have not been completed within 48 months of the date of this agreement through no fault of the architect, extension of the contract services beyond that time shall be compensated as additional services. But there's no force majeure, stuff that it's beyond our control also.
I just filled in the blank.
Actually, I read that as 2 years at first. I guess I was thinking 2 days with a 48.
48 hours.
40 years.
4 years, yeah.
Gracious.
I just,
4 years worth.
well, I mean,
Well,
mean-
and
we didn't
the
expect,
reason is you have the design time, you have the construction time, you have the warranty phase after the construction time. So you got 1 year after the construction time. So you're already pushing 36 months, potentially there. So our 42 months of potential time are already. So that's why I'm pushing it out 48 months, anticipating that where we're trying to get it out there as far as possible. But I have had where counties will come along and say, okay, we're just going to stop everything, and now we want you to start up again. And well, can we at least talk about what else changed during that time, and that it does change the compensation for the architect, We went through a lot of that during COVID.
yes, that's what made me think about that, needing a force majeure. Do you, Commissioner Eagle, you're the legal eagle, do you think we need a force majeure?
Looking to see if there's one in here already. There may be one in here already.
Well, Christine can do a find on her. the document.
I'll look.
Okay, so that's a question. We already talked about the arbitration versus litigation, so you're going to
On your
change.
force majeure, you're saying that you want the architect to perform irrespective of whether or not the time, I mean, if we go for longer periods of time, or I'm a little confused
Well,
on what the
what's-
force majeure is trying to achieve here.
Well, what kicks in after the 4 years is that shall be compensated as additional services, which is, isn't that more expensive than, what does that mean? That the whole contract would be, you'd achieve your base payment plus then we'd then be paying additional?
No. Because additional services are defined that we mutually agree to what those fees are. That's how we've defined how we're charging for additional services. Under additional service, we say that we're going to mutually agree on how we're charging for additional services. So we're not, so anything that has not been billed as of that date, we go back and we look at anything that has not been completed at that time, we go back and look at, okay, if we stopped at design development phase and we still have 35% of the construction documents, there, is that adequate for us to get our engineers started back up and everything else? Or if I come back to you and say, our engineers are asking for $10,000 more to start up or whatever, I'm asking for that to be, compensated, or a shared compensation of, we'll absorb so much, y'all absorb so much. That's where that mutual agreement comes from. It's not there's no automatic of, we're gonna work by hours and just turn in slips and you're gonna pay. There's none of that.
Are so far into the project, and let's say COVID happened again and things stopped, wouldn't there still be funds left in the 2.1 million to cover when it starts back up? Why would we
There'd
need
be
to?
funds available,
Yeah,
but what if the economy totally changed during that time and the dollar was worth half of what it's worth now? And we're I mean, everything changed at that point, and we're sitting there, we've been dormant for 2 years now, after the project has been suspended.
yeah,
And you say, okay, now go forward. And we're saying, well, we're beyond our 4 years. We're in a different economic time. The value of our contract then is not the value of our contract now. And you're asking us to complete work that I can't pay my employees on. So it's,
yeah. So I think
that's where it allows us to go back and say, can we renegotiate this?
yeah, so we just need something in there to protect the county at the same time, because this language in here protects you, but there's nothing in
Well,
here.
it actually protects the county too, because under additional services, it says it has to be mutually agreed. And if we don't mutually agree, then we terminate the contract, you owe us nothing.
Yeah, but then we don't have a completed jail.
Right, but okay. That's where you're getting at on the force majeure, is to say, you have to complete it what you originally said, even though we suspended the project, or we didn't have a choice in suspending the project. Beyond the time that we originally agreed, we wouldn't go beyond.
I think section 6 covers it. I do, yeah.
Okay.
6.4 and then down to 6.7, I think you cover it. So it doesn't say force majeure, but I believe both sides are covered with that.
Alan or our legal department has read the terms of this agreement shall have the same meaning as those in AIA document A201.2017 general conditions. Have you guys looked at that? Okay, if you take a look at that AIA document, that'd be good. Section 10.8, does that?
Before you go too far, I did mention to you on the way in this morning that
Oh, yeah.
somehow we had struck out a phrase under 8.2.3 that should not have been struck out, and it doesn't read right. At the end of the phrase, the mediation shall be held in a place where the project is located, Hood County, Granbury, Texas. There should be a period there. And the original language that was in the contract form, agreements reached in mediation. And then it should begin, that should be inserted before the and, agreed to by Commissioner's Court, shall be enforceable.
Okay.
So I need to add back in that language there that was taken out by accident.
On 10.8, does that conflict with the Public Information Act? It says that if the architect or owner receives information specifically designated as confidential or business proprietary, the receiving party shall keep such information strictly confidential. Can we do that?
Yeah, there are provisions, it's my understanding that there are provisions under the Open Records Act for
Yeah, because how would we handle that? Just, if we got an open records request, we just have to send it through you to determine if could be.
He would have to determine if it meets the exceptions under the Open Records Act, but if they submit something that they're stating is proprietary and confidential, we just go with that. Let somebody fight, and then we don't produce it.
it's just, like when we do the
I don't even see what they would give.
yeah, in an
I don't-
RFQ or something, sometimes for the construction managers or other things, and when they're submitted, they have, that they have to designate the proprietary information or whatever. Even though they do that, it's still the overriding, and again, we have in here about the Open Records Act and the Open Meetings Act. Those govern this contract, so even though they've requested it, it still has to meet those exceptions, so.
On 11.5, it says when compensation for basic services is stipulated. So does this apply to, is this how you anticipate the payments going? And if so, should it say when and just not, this is how we're doing it? When compensation.
Under which one?
11.5, where it lists out the 15% for schematic and 20% for design phase. Is that how we're going to, the payments are going to be made?
Yes, because it says, that's standard form language. Again, I don't know why it starts with when, but
Yeah.
it is a stipulated sum basis.
Yeah, can we just take out, just say basic services is based on, just when it said when, I thought, well, maybe that doesn't apply to
Well,
us, but it does.
It does, because it's when it is this.
Okay. Okay.
I'd rather not change
Okay. I just wanted-
because so many of these forms and verbiage has been tested in
Yeah, that's
court,
fine.
and I don't
Just-
know the outcomes and the specific things and
You
whether or not it's,
answered the question. Because it said when, I didn't know if that's what you were expecting, but you said yes, so. So the $75 for the clerical person does, per hour, does that not cover the 10%? Sorry, I'm harping on that, but Mr. Lowry brought it up again too.
If I'm charging per an hourly basis, it is, but I don't, and these are going to have to change to 2026 now. But I'm not billing on an hourly basis on the contract, but,
Oh, you're not?
no, I mean, the contract is a lump sum
Okay,
stipulated
so
sum.
this is not applicable to this
It is if you ask us to go back and do something
additional
extra and
service?
you want it, we're held to these prices,
Okay,
here during the term of the contract.
okay,
So that's why these are in here. But yeah, that, I don't pay a clerical person $75 an hour. That is the rate, that's the billable rate, that we would charge if we were charging by, hour. And if we did it by hour, yes, it probably would cover the cost of doing business, but we're not charging that way. We're getting the compensation a different way.
okay, thank you.
And
Probably-
again, as I described before, is that whether we do it on basic services fee or whether it's, we have some clients, Bear County is one of them, on most of our contracts, they say, you need to have all your reimbursable expenses anticipated and rolled into your fee structure because we don't pay out on reimbursable expenses. Other counties say, we want you to have everything itemized and we want to see every trip and everything. So that's why I was trying to say last time, I can do it either way of just putting it in the fee structure, or I can put it, as to itemize. I thought that having it, on a per trip basis provides a little bit better, view of, okay, this is our mileage and expenses that we're doing. This is a printing cost, and then we're putting on our cost of doing business with it. So we're showing the actual cost plus a multiplier on it.
Taxes levied, because isn't it tax exempt?
Everything is not tax exempt
Okay,
it's a limited sales tax exemption for the county. So,
okay.
I mean,
We
there's some things that, we can, I know under the construction, there's some things that, rental equipment is not tax exempt and some other things.
You don't anticipate having a site office? It's like number 10, site office expenses.
Not unless you go back and say you want the architect under the additional services to have a site office, so.
Okay. I think I'm on the last thing. 11.10.2.3. Is that the one? Yeah, the owners shall, no. Yeah. Records for reimbursable expenses, expenses pertaining to supplemental and additional services and services performed on the basis of hourly rates shall be available to the owner at mutually convenient times. Shouldn't that be submitted at the time you request payment? And how would you submit?
No, I mean, this is, we have to maintain our records on, we're going to,
This makes it sound like you're asking for a reimbursable expense, but you're not providing any records. So the records of reimbursable expenses shall be available to the owner at mutually convenient times. It sounds like you're going to ask for a reimbursement, but not provide the records unless we ask for it at a mutually convenient time. The records for the reimbursables need to be submitted at the time you request payment.
again,
Just like
depending
any-
on your auditors and counties' requirements. Some counties require us to provide the original receipt. Some counties allow us to do copies of the receipts. Some counties say, do not provide me with the receipts, but you have them for us to audit if need be. So that's this is standard language in the contract, and we have to provide that, and we have to keep that, no records for your review and to present it. I'm not going to get paid if it doesn't follow the auditor's requirements to begin with. So if y'all, whatever your standard format is, I'm going to do that. This is just saying that all of our documents are open to audit, and I mean, I believe under the Purchasing Act, I already have to provide that.
Ms. Matlock?
A mutually convenient time could be at a commissioner's court, so, you know, after he submits it.
I mean, if you're going to ask for reimbursement, aren't you going to supply the travel documents, the hotel receipts, and all of those things?
Yeah, I don't think that's saying that they're not. I think what that's saying is it may take you a month to get these things put together. So that's at your convenience, and then it's got to go on our court schedule or whatever, which would be at our convenience. So that would be a mutually agreed upon time when you have them prepared and when it's time for us to take them in. Is that what we're saying here?
That's not what this reads to me. It says records of reimbursable expenses shall be available to the owner at mutually convenient times. So that sounds to me like you're not going to submit them when you submit your request for reimbursement.
Then I guess I don't get paid.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if he doesn't submit them and he doesn't get paid, it's kind of.
Again, I didn't change that or write that to mean anything specifically there, and no, only the ones that have the lines out next to them are any that I've modified there that we put it, but that is only there as part of the agreement. I thought it was adequate, but and I haven't been questioned on it. Because again, we have to go through the requirements of each county that we work with of what their payment process is. If we don't provide that, we can bow our necks all day long and say we don't want to provide it to you. And I've never met an auditor that says, okay, well, you don't have to. I mean,
I could see, because, you know,
and
people refer back to the contract, and you could say, well, this contract says I can give them to you at a mutually convenient time.
And she says, then I can pay you at a mutually convenient time. I mean,
She has to pay you when she gets an invoice, right? You can't just hold off on the invoice.
If I don't have the approvals and the required documentation, I'm not paying anything.
Okay.
that's what I'm usually told. So I'm
And that may not even be a public kind of thing.
This is mostly a
Okay.
written private, and I try to, those things that I do notice that
Yeah.
have been told that have to be changed for public entities or for counties. I try to adapt it to that.
Okay, well, can you just say at the end of this, however, documentation will be provided per the auditor's requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
So, do you want to talk about having a meeting on the 14th? Well,
We talked about owner's rep, so what steps do we need to take?
so,
What? You lost me.
to a retired jail architect yesterday who is now in the owner's rep business, been architect for years and years. I didn't ask all the jails that he's built, but I did call Brandon Wood this morning from the Texas Commission to ask to get a reference for the person. And also now, the judge has got this one. So one of the things that we might want to do is, rather than waiting until the 27th, we could have another special called meeting to speak with this guy or the gentleman that I talked to yesterday. And well, that would.
Yeah, I guess that's the question. RFQ would take some time.
Would take time. The other option is that,
Designate the most qualified.
yeah, if you have, really good evidence that this person is qualified beyond reproach,
Yeah, well, that was what I was considering, and that's why I called Mr. Wood this morning, was to get that verification, is tell me about this person. The good thing about him is he's just up the road, so he could be here every day without really travel expenses. But, then the judge brought this one, so we have two options.
Well, this is, so with all due respect, this is really not agenda. So, but we can, whatever y'all want to do, we can set it up however y'all want to do it later. Do you have anything else on this agenda?
No.
Kevin,
Do you have anything else? Okay.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Commissioner, I have one question that, going back to did we resolve 1.3 on the budget? On what we're going to list there on the budget?
Which number?
1.1.3,
1.
building construction and site work.
At 21 and a half.
Oh,
21
And you
and a half.
addressed her question, right?
yeah, but I haven't looked it up since we've been here. I don't know.
Okay. I'll look and see if I do have that as a document that I submitted to y'all, but if not, then I'll back that down to 20 million.
Okay,
I guess the last thing is so the next step is for you to make these changes and then resubmit the revised document?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for going through this. I think we found some important things that needed to be changed.
We did. On the date, is there an anticipated date that y'all would want to get this on the agenda, and I could change that date on here too?
It's either the 13th or the 27th. I was looking to see if,
well, we can't do the 13th.
unless it was already submitted. I was looking to see if,
I mean, we could do the 27th is the next court.
27th.
Unless this is an agenda item on the 13th.
I was looking,
I didn't know
we don't have
If
a
it's an
draft.
agenda item, it's an agenda item, so I don't know. Did you put it on there? You and I didn't, so if Jack put it on the agenda for the 13th, we can do it then. If not, we can put it on the 27th.
I'll put the date of the 27th, and if it happens to be on the 13th, then you mark it out and initial it, and to put it in the resolution that it was dated the 13th, or as of this date of resolution. So
Thank
it
you.
won't be the first time that we've changed the date on the Commissioners Court meeting.
Thank you again for your thoughtful answers and going through this with us.
Well, and I know this is tedious, and I appreciate y'all's time, and I know that's not easy to do either, so.
So everybody down there okay now? All right, well, I need to start with 1 point. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't help. All right, we're now adjourned at what is this, 12:51? Thank you.